Welcome back to the couch, you amazing, twisted mother lovers. I power myself with research every week to bring you the most ultimate twisted story I possibly can. And remember, everything I cover is based on true events. So go ahead, pull that twisted couch back up and invite your friends over because it is time for me to again open my twisted book and take you on a journey into the unknown. In today's episode of Twisted Couch Talk. Welcome back to the couch, you guys. It is Friday. You know what that means. It's the last day of the work week. You guys are ready to go home, or maybe you guys are already home and you're going to bed and you listen to my voice to go to sleep at night. It's okay. Sweet dreams. But anyways, we are back today with just another beautiful story. But first, let me go ahead and thank you guys for coming back each week to listen to what I have to bring to the table. It's fun. I enjoy doing it, and you guys come back and just give me feedback and send me messages. Oh, it's just so cool. Keep it up, guys. Keep coming back. And very quickly, let's do some country shout-outs. Finland, Canada, United Kingdom, Denmark. Welcome to the couch, you guys. It's comfy and warm, and it's a little spooky. I'm going to have bonus episodes for each country. And Finland, you're first. I'm in the process of making it right now. But it will be out this Friday along with the regular scheduled program. Now, if you guys are wondering, I'm available everywhere. YouTube, check it out. Go subscribe, hit the like button, leave a comment. Do whatever it is you guys got to do. I don't care. Let's get it done. You can also hear me. It's just everywhere. Anywhere you can find a podcast, I'm there. Check it out. The Facebook page, you guys got to come follow it. If you don't follow it, you're not going to know what's going on. If you don't know what's going on, you won't know if the episodes are dropping on time or not. You won't know anything. So remember, like I always say, stay in the now, not the past, present, or future, in the very now. Well, I guess that is the present. That doesn't matter. Go over to the Facebook page and sit there with your sniper rifle and look for that follow button, that one that's just so elusive. So find the follow button, put it right in your crosshairs, and fire on that sumbitch. Okay, no, click it. If you fire on it, it's not gonna work. You got to click the follow button so you guys can join the community and stay in the now. Now, enough of the Facebook page. I have a challenge for you guys. Okay, this is a little different. What kind of twist head are you? Go to the Patreon. There's 4 tiers. Go see which one you are, and if you want to pick one and pay and subscribe and all this other stuff to help out with the show, heck yeah. But go see what kind of twist head you are. Are you a twisted cinnamon roll, or are you a F5 twisted tornado, or just a twisted stranger, or possibly just a twisted average Joe? Go see which one you are. Let me know which one you are. I'd love to know. But also PayPal. I now have PayPal. You guys can donate at any time, any amount. All of it will be appreciated. You just use the Twisted Couch Talk email, and then you can go and donate. But enough of all the business bullshit. I know why you guys are here, and I know why you came and sat on the couch. It wasn't to spend money. You want to hear a free, beautiful, twisted story that I have to unfold to you guys. But you guys already know I got some questions. Do you guys like to go hunting? I mean, I do. I like to go hunting. I'm a shitty hunter, but I like to go. What's the biggest game you ever shot? Mine was a catfish. Well, the biggest game of the year was shot and killed, and it baffled everyone. Wait a minute. What? What was it? Who was it? How big was it? Well, let's go ahead and put our orange vests on because we got to be safe, safety first. And let's go on a hunt and find out exactly what happened in the Dodson hunting accident. Okay, so this twisted story begins with a woman named Janice K. Dodson. All right, she was born Janice K. Sanders on July 17th, 1951. The future Mrs. Dodson would grow up in Houston, Texas, Tejas, for others who like to say Tejas. I'm sorry, I love saying Tejas. Sounds better in Texas. Anyways, she lived in Houston, Texas with a family that spent their free time hunting in the great outdoors, where she became quite the sharpshooter. She had started hunting and firing rifles as young as 8 years old, and any father that loves hunting would embrace that and raise their baby girl to become a big game hunter. She would go on hunting trips every single year, but they weren't all happy memories. She had often butted heads with her parents. And everywhere I looked said she had troubled upbringings, and I looked for like 2 hours and I couldn't find jack diddly. So I'm going to leave that up to your guys' imagination. She said she had a troubled upbringing, Was her parents just too strict? I highly doubt that she was raped or molested or anything to that extreme because it would be available. But maybe it just, her and her parents just didn't really get along. They butted heads a lot. Maybe they said some things that hurt her feelings. Just, something along those lines. I'll leave that up to your guys' imagination. But due to this, she left to get away from her parents and she would meet a cowboy by the name of J.C. Lee. They would go on to have a good relationship and end up getting married. She was head over heels for this man. She would have done anything because, come on, he had saved her from her home life. They would go on to have 2 kids, a daughter and a son. JC was a ranch hand and didn't make much money, and he would jump from job to job trying to support their family. But Janice, she didn't really care. She just saw the man that saved her from all the turbulence between her and her parents, like I was saying a little bit ago. So she would have done anything for him, feeling forever appreciative for the Superman cowboy that saved her. So in 1982, she would go back to school and get her degree to be a registered nurse. She would land a job at Delta County Memorial Hospital. Coworkers would go on to say that she was really lively and extremely friendly, and all of her patients adored her, and they would even ask her about her days off. Where is she? How is she doing? And, etc. Everybody loved her. She worked in the medical surgic unit, but in 1990, her world would just crumble around her. Her amazing, loving husband of 25 years plus that had saved her from her home life, she had caught him cheating on her with a much, much younger woman. And when I was reading this, I was just like, there's no way. You're not going to believe who he was cheating on her with. It's not her best friend. It's not her mom, maybe her boss or something like that. No, it was actually their daughter's best friend. That's crazy and disgusting. Age ain't a thing. And at this point, they've been married for 20 plus years. So you can imagine that her friend is 20 plus years old. So that's what we're going off of here. But still, that's disgusting. That's so wrong. That is so wrong. I'm not even going to try to imagine that. That is just so wrong. And we're going to continue from that. So yeah. And this would ultimately destroy her. And I honestly don't blame her. I don't blame her because that would crush me. Oh, that would crush me if that ever happened to me, if the roles were reversed. That's just so horrible. So after she caught them, she swore revenge on JC the day that she saw them two getting ready to have sex in their getaway cabin. He takes this young woman to his and his wife's getaway cabin. I'm not telling you to cheat, but if you're going to cheat, don't do it. Do it somewhere else. Go to a car or something. You know what I mean? Don't be cheating on the same bed that you lay with your spouse. That's disgusting. Don't do that. I'm sorry. If you're going to cheat, go ahead and cheat, whatever. But don't do it like that. That's gross. So due to this, she would relocate to another hospital located about 30 miles away from the prior hospital in Montrose, Colorado. But she would keep in contact with the former hospital where she had been employed and would keep close contact with old coworkers and friends, one of them by the name of Bruce Dodson. And she grew a liking to him. She was seeking comfort and emotional support from him through her divorce, and Bruce was okay with that. He wanted to help. There was an ex-coworker by the name of Catherine Matthews that had said she had dressed quite conservatively, such as wearing long skirts and baggy clothing. She had always had her hair up nicely in a bun, and she would always have a bun cover over the top of it, making her look like an Amish-type woman or a Quaker in other descriptions. Also, she never wore makeup while she was married to JC, but after the divorce, that would all change. She would go on to reinvent herself, and this would make a huge impression on others, especially Bruce. She would start dressing rather seductively by wearing clothing that was more revealing than you would averagely wear. She would spend large amounts of money on high-end clothing and doll herself up with makeup to give herself a new look. So her and Bruce would continue to talk to each other for a while. And Bruce was a doctor. He worked in the labs where they would do, send blood work and all that. He was like the head guy out there. So, the man was making some pretty good money. But everyone around her had said they seemed like just the perfect couple. They were lively and outgoing. She would introduce him to new things, and it just seemed like they had so much love between them. And honestly, before they started talking, he was a bit of a loner. Sticking to himself. He didn't have any kids, never married, and just kind of, was a loner, just stuck to himself. But she would bring him out of that comfort zone. They would go on dating for several years. They would actually make the leap of faith and marry on July 15th, 1995. So they would go on to be married for about 3 months. And Janice wanted to take her husband to the great outdoors and show him the joys of tracking and hunting. She took him to Uncompahgre National Forest in Colorado. This is an area that she knew well. And she and CJ had camped there and hunted there often while they were married. As a matter of fact, JC was there the same weekend with his girlfriend, brother, and friends. You got to remember, this really isn't his thing. He had never been hunting in a day in his life, Bruce. But this is common, if you love your wife, you would do anything to make her happy, right? There had been 2 off-duty police officers, Doug Kyle and Michael Madwell from Texas. They had also been enjoying the great outdoors by hunting and camping that same weekend. Everyone was enjoying the big game hunting, but no one had any idea how big the game would ultimately be. On October 15th, 1995, one of the off-duty officers, Doug Kyle, wakes up in the morning to a gunshot. At first, he had thought nothing of this because they were in a huge area where people were hunting all the time, quite regularly. And after the first shot, he had heard hooping and hollering, so he chalked it up to people celebrating over shooting a deer or even a wild boar, which really isn't that uncommon. But then he would hear a second gunshot. Then a few seconds later, would hear a third gunshot. He would go on to report that the gunshot was really close to the campsite that he was at. But there was a lot of hunters in the area, possibly over 100 people were hunting at the time. When he knew it was safe, he walked out of his tent to prep his deer that he had shot the night before. When he was about halfway done, he was greeted by a feminine voice coming from behind him saying, "That's quite a rack you have," referring to the deer. She would go on to introduce herself as Janice Dodson. She would go on to say her husband was over yonder hunting for some dinner. She would go on to tell him that she had been waiting on his return and that he had been taking a long time. As she walks away, she said that she was going to go look for him. So almost an hour goes by when he is startled by the sounds of a woman screaming for help. He takes off running to the top of the hill to see what could possibly be going on. He makes it to the top of the hill when he is tackled by Issei Sagawa, and they are wrestling and tumbling and rolling down the hill. Bob Ross shows up on a motorcycle, cigar in hand, puffs out that big cloud of smoke, and takes a shot at Issei Sagawa. He misses. He shoots again, and then he hits the off-duty officer on accident in the shoulder. The officer topples to the ground. Issei Sagawa goes towards the officer's neck to rip his throat out. Bob Ross then shoots one more time and blows off Issei Sagawa's leg. You think at this point, Issei may be done. The creature just keeps crawling and crawling away. Bob Ross then comes down on his paintbrush-like motorcycle. He pulls up alongside him and says, "I finally got you, you green bastard." He cocks his shotgun, aims it at Issei Sagawa, and as he pulls the trigger, Issei Sagawa dissipates and vanishes. Bob Ross hops off the motorcycle and stands up looking around wondering what's going on. He has no idea that Issei Sagawa is actually behind him, getting ready to attack. Bob Ross then punches him in the face. Issei falls to the ground. Bob Ross shoots him with one direct blow straight to the face. Issei then gets up and runs away as he is holding his brains from leaking out of his skull. Bob Ross continues to shoot at Issei Sagawa, but Issei is too quick. He's running away with lightning speed, and his skull slowly regenerates back to its original shape, and he disappears off into the forest. No, none of that happened, but I had to bring your guys' attention back to the reality of what's really going on. What is really going on is the cop goes up to the top of the hill. This part is true. He sees the woman that had stopped a while ago, and she was standing over someone that was laying on the ground. Laying face down on the ground, bleeding, was Bruce Dodson, and he was only 48 years old. With his hands at his side, and alongside him were his orange vest and his rifle. His wife of 3 months was kneeling at his side, screaming and crying for help. She had picked up his orange vest and was screaming out, "Why didn't you have your vest on? Why didn't you have your vest on?" She was crying and carrying on as Doug went up to her and said, "Ma'am, is this your husband?" And she said, "Yes, this is Bruce. Help, you've got to help him, please. You've just got to help him." Bruce was sadly beyond help. He truly seemed destined to be yet another victim of a hunting accident, mistaken for game, a mistake that would repeat itself more than 100 times over the U.S. Bruce was said to be a quiet-natured and very compassionate man. He had even served 4 years in the Navy and was in the Vietnam War. You know, just like Forrest Gump. Some boys have on, race to wave the flag. Oh, the red, white, and blue. But Bubba was on the ground, and Forrest had no other option but to carry his brother all the way out of the battlefield and saving his life. But Lieutenant Dan, he's back there, and he ain't got no legs. Lieutenant Dan, I'm coming. Forrest Gump then runs back into the jungle of all the explosions and gunfire and everything that's going on. Picks up Lieutenant Dan with him and his no-leg having ass, throws him over his shoulder and rushes him out there. Lieutenant Dan says, Why, Forrest, why did you take me out there? You could have just left me to die. I was supposed to die with them men out there. Leave me, Forrest, leave me to die. Okay, I got a little bit off track there. I'm so sorry. I might have got a little bit loud there too, but this man fought in Nam, and God dang it, thank you for your service. And everybody who is serving for us right now, thank you for your service. I couldn't be more appreciative because you guys make it to where I can sit here and be a goofball on the fucking radio. So thank you. I got to catch my breath. That one just came out of me. That was great. I love that. That was actually really fun. Okay, all right, so back to the real story. So after the off-duty police officer checked for a pulse, he never got one. And after that, he ran as fast as he could back to his campsite, and he had jumped into his truck and took off towards town. And along the way, he had come across a man talking on his cell phone. Doug then pulls up next to him and tells him, "Please dial 911 as fast as you can." I have the transcript of that call, and it goes like this. Dispatch, 911, what's your emergency? Caller, I'm up on the divided road, and there's a man over here who'd been shot and killed here. Dispatch, when did this happen, sir? I don't know. I'm just up here, and a guy came up to me and said, that in his camp, a man had been shot and someone's dead. Dispatch, like suicide or someone's been? She gets cut off abruptly. The caller then frantically says, "We don't know." This leads to many squad cars rushing to the area, and shortly before noon, the Mesa County Sheriff's Department deputies arrive. Doug, the off-duty officer, runs up to the squad car so he can lead the sheriff to the horrific scene. When Doug and the sheriff arrived, Doug immediately stops in his tracks and said, "This is all different. This scene wasn't like this when I left." Doug would go on to tell the sheriff that when he had left, Bruce was face down, and when they showed up, Bruce was on his back. He was also covered up in a blanket, and when they asked Janice, she said that she didn't want him to get cold waiting for help to arrive. And at this point, you have to think of her mental state because her husband is dead. The off-duty officer confirmed it earlier, and you can't warm a dead body. So the sheriff had told Doug to take her to the campsite and calm her down and keep her company so they can start the investigation. Doug had said in an interview about the crime scene, saying she had harmlessly rolled him over to put a blanket over him, but it was tampering with the true story. He goes on to say, every little detail tells the story of what happened. And when you move anything or touch anything, it starts to make the story really blurry. So when Janice was asked what happened that day, she would go on to say that their day had started early in the morning by getting up at 5 a.m. They would continue hunting like they had done the day before. She said she would go up in the brush and chase the game out, and he was supposed to shoot at the animal that ran out. So at some point, they decided to split up and meet back at the camp at 9:30 a.m. But she had come back early, saying she had to change her clothes because they were muddy. When asked why they were muddy, she said because she had walked through a bog. On the way to change her clothes, she had ran into Doug, chatted it up about the deer that he shot, and she continued to her campsite to change. A little while after that, she went looking for her husband and found him just laying there. She would go on saying she had also crossed paths with a man dressed in camouflage. This part is weird because if you're in a big place full of people hunting, you're going to put on your orange. The police continued to ask questions, and she would shut down, becoming overwhelmed with emotions due to the traumatic event. So when she starts panicking and hyperventilating and falls to the ground, the officers have the paramedics come over and they must start doing compressions. Shortly after they call the helicopter, she gets airlifted to the closest hospital. A while after she was airlifted, they took Bruce to the coroner's office to perform an autopsy. The investigators then go back to the possible crime scene and gather evidence such as her hunting gear, which had a muddy .270 caliber Winchester rifle. They had also went back and got her muddy clothes she had changed out of earlier that day. That included some muddy overalls. Throughout all this, they also had officers wait at Doug's campsite, waiting for Doug's hunting partner to come back from hunting. When he had gotten back, one of the officers pulled Michael Madwell, Doug Kyle's partner, to the side and started interrogating him. Earlier at the crime scene, an officer pulled Doug Kyle's aside about his partner. The officers believed that Doug Kyle's partner was in fact a dirty cop that did this horrible crime. In the interview, Michael Madwell said that they started interrogating him and asking him what he had been doing and where he was. When he asked the police officer why he was getting questioned, the officer had replied with, "There was a hunter that was shot." Michael immediately said out loud, "Doug." The officer then reassured him that Doug was okay and then continued to interrogate him more. Investigators then find out that Janice's ex-husband was camping not far away. So then they had to think about if this was a jealousy-type homicide. Janice's ex-husband, J.C. Lee, was also camping about 3/4 of a mile from the Dodsons. Janice knew this site was his favorite camp location. He naturally came under suspicion. However, Lee was hunting far away from his camp with his boss at the time of the shooting. Most importantly, Lee reported to investigators that while he was out hunting, someone had stolen his .308 revolver and a box of .308 cartridges from his tent. So the next day, Bruce's friend and co-worker, Dr. Thomas Canfield, was given the task of determining the cause of death. And honestly, I couldn't imagine having to see a good friend of mine dead on a table and then somebody telling me, "Figure out why he died, please." I couldn't imagine that. Dr. Thomas said in an interview, it was an extremely emotional thing for him to do, and to do an autopsy on a friend is also extremely difficult. But you got to do it, and you must do a good job too. The nurse would go on to say everyone in the lab room was devastated. And working in a hospital close to a hunting reservation, it's just not that uncommon to see, and they truly didn't know if it was an accident or not. Doc would go on to say there were 3 bullet holes that he quickly identified. One was in his orange vest and the other 2 bullet holes were in his body. The second bullet wound was the fatal blow. From his findings, he immediately called the sheriff's office saying that this is definitely not an accident. This is a murder. He would confirm that the bullet holes were in fact from a rifle. So from their findings, they decided to go and talk to Janice. She would go on to say her and Bruce had been planning on going there 5 days prior and also hoped to run into her ex-in-laws. They would ask if she knew if her ex-husband, JC, would be there, and she just said, "I don't know, but that's a place he knows well." So after that, she is free and spent a lot of money on high-end things and got married again, spending shit tons of money at the casino shouting, "I'm rich, bitch!" But the day after, Bill Booth, an investigator for the district attorney's office, and his partner, Dave Martinez, began analyzing every detail about the last few days of Bruce's life. Reconstructing the incident, they concluded they were up against an icy, calculating murder. Booth theorized that Bruce was walking along the fence line when he was first fired upon. Miraculously, the bullet only went through his clothing and just grazed his skin. Bruce then took off his vest to wave it around and started yelling to let people know that he was not a deer. But then Bruce was shot in the chest and he was falling. He was hit once more in the back. The third bullet struck a fence post before it hit Bruce. Investigators traced the bullet's path to what they believed was the assassin's nest, where they found a spent cartridge from a .308 caliber bullet. Neither Bruce nor Janice were hunting with such a weapon, but remember, JC had reported a .380 caliber rifle stolen. Booth and Martinez later discovered that Janice had been to the mountain just a few weeks before on a separate hunting trip without her husband. Subtly, in their minds, Janice changed from a grieving widower to their prime suspect. Hold on, I gotta get a drink. My mouth's going dry. Man, I'm telling you, now I get why comedians have water on their stage all the time, because, your mouth goes dry. They go on to say, we believed at that point, at that time, that was when she set the scene. She knew that she was setting up the murder area up ahead. When investigators learned about Janice's financial affairs, they had a motive. And it's a pretty good one. Money is a pretty good motive for people to do the crap that they do. She'd taken out 3 insurance policies. She made sure to get wills done, and Bruce owned 2 homes. Only 1 month after Bruce's death, Janice was gambling at the Players Club Casino in Louisiana, yelling, "I'm rich, bitch." Like I was saying earlier, she had closed his bank accounts, sold his home and other property, his car, and even his horse gallery. She cashed in his IRAs. The police had said she was badgering the life insurance companies to pay off his policies, even though they were only good for accidental death, not homicide. And then she decided to remarry. In total, she would gain about $500,000 because of his death. Okay, what more of a motive do you need? Everything's just kind of like right there lining up. Nothing's making sense. I mean, come on. Nothing's making sense, but everything is making sense at the same time. So about 3 months after Bruce's death, investigators find Janice and ask if she would come down to the police station to take a polygraph test. And I don't know about you, but me personally, I do believe that the polygraph tests are true. I think that they're very well researched, and the results that they get are true. I think if somebody's lying, it's going to call them out. If they're telling the truth, they're going to bring the truth to the light. You know what I'm saying? I really believe that, lie detector tests, I think that's one of the best ways to get facts out of a person if they don't want to confess. So her results showed strong results of deception. The professional that was doing the test had said to her that she had been showing extreme deception in regards of if she had known who had killed her husband. Also, she had shown extreme deception when asked if she had killed her husband. He goes on to say, if you would like, I can show you the lines, and they are all over the place. She would just go on to stick with her story and say, I told you the story. I did not shoot Bruce. I am not lying. And I know from the deeps of my heart, I did not shoot him. So due to her not admitting anything, the cops can't do anything to hold her any longer and have no choice but to let her go. And at this point, I mean, I'm kind of like a little bit of police brutality. I'm going to look the other way, You got her in the room. Hit her with the taser just once. Just once. Because you guys know she did this. Just get her once, right in the rib cage. Drops to the ground. Oh, sorry, I slipped. Didn't mean to, Just give her one good little jolt. Anyways, a year has passed. Okay. And she is just living it up. As I said before, she remarries to an old friend and is just blowing through all this money. And she decides she needs a change of scenery and moves back to Texas. Old Tejas, the place of dreams where everything is bigger. Everything's bigger in Texas. Anyways, on April 4th, 1997, investigators interview Janice's new husband. And within that interview, he said something kind of, startling. He had stated that he had taken out a $100,000 life insurance policy for his wife if anything were to ever happen to him, so that she would be taken care of. Okay, now let's go ahead and take a look at this. She just got $500,000, all types of stuff because her husband is dead. Why is this man allowing her to do all? Why doesn't he see the pattern? But we'll go on. They can only take this information and put it towards evidence, and 2 years would pass, and they would feel the pressure of needing to put her behind bars. So they would dive deep and look into past statements and come across her stating that she had changed due to crossing a bog, and she had to change her clothes. Okay, so they started thinking about that a little bit. And I never even thought of this. So what this just shows really good police work. And I'm not lying. Like, I wouldn't have thought of this. It would have taken me a minute. So on June 3rd, 1998, 3 years after the crime, police had a pair of coveralls that Janice had been wearing the day her husband was killed. Okay, right? Okay, let's see what we got going on here. So that evening, Booth and Martinez decided to camp near the crime scene. They were discussing the evidence in the case when the investigators looked at each other and said, "The mud." He was referring to the dried up mud that was found on Janice Dodson's clothing. If Janice had obtained the rifle from Lee's camp, she would most likely have stepped or fallen into the clay that drained across the road from the cattle pond. Remembering Janice's statement that she was returning to camp on the morning of the crime because she stepped into a mud bog near her camp, Booth and Martinez decided they needed to obtain dry mud samples from the bog near the Dodson's camp. Booth and Martinez packaged the dry mud from each location and sent the samples along with the dried mud that had been recovered from Janice's overalls. And they had sent it to the laboratory section of the Colorado Bureau of Investigation in Denver. Al Biber of NecroSearch International commented that the mud in and around the cattle pond near Lee's camp was bentonite. Bentonite is a clay that someone brought up to the pond to stop the water from seeping out of the bottom. It was also examined by Jacqueline Battles, a forensic scientist and lab agent. Battles is a highly respected forensic scientist with a considerable amount of geologic training. So, you know what? I'm going to go on ahead and hand my mud to her and go ahead and tell me what all kind of stuff's in my soil because I don't trust nobody else. And who, like many of the others in the profession, got her early training with Walter McCrone. She concluded and later testified to the fact that the dried mud found on Janice's clothing was consistent with the dried mud recovered from the pond near Lee's camp. The dried mud that had been recovered from Janice's overalls was found not to be consistent with the mud bog or pond near her camp. So let me clear this up. Basically, if you didn't gather, these guys smartly came up with the idea to get the mud off of the overalls and go over to where where JC was camping and get some mud over there and send that off. On top of that, they would go where the Dodsons were camping and send some of that mud off and send it up there. From those two samples, JC's is the only one that was compatible with the overalls. The mud from the Dodsons camp wasn't even close. Similar, but not as close. They had particular differences in them. So, of course, this was a breaking point in the investigation, and this allowed Booth and Martinez to put Janice Dodson in her ex-husband's camp around the time his rifle had been stolen. That is some damn good police work. Come up with that. Figure that out. That is genius. So after they concluded all the evidence they had gathered, her story started to fall apart. All this evidence proves that she was, in fact, close enough to the campsite that the gun had been stolen from. And if it hadn't been for the mud, God knows how this would have all played out. Could have been a cold case and nothing would have ever gotten figured out. So on the morning of October 23rd, 1998, there had been a warrant for her arrest and the police showed up in her Tejas home in Nacogdoches, along with Booth and Martinez. When they had showed up, she wouldn't come out and she had been hiding behind her bed with a shotgun. After they busted through the door, they came to the bedroom and kicked the door open and saw her hiding, immediately pulled back and said, "Ma'am, if you don't put that weapon down," referring to the shotgun she had in her hands, they were going to be forced to open fire, and she decided to go peacefully instead of leaving in a body bag. Smart choice. They go in and they detain her. She was extradited to Colorado where she would go to jail and wait for trial. So on February 22nd, 2000, she goes on trial for first-degree murder of her husband back in October 15th, 1995. Prosecutors would go on to say that the first shot had grazed him and went through his vest. So being horrified after feeling a bullet graze him, he would then take his vest off and wave it around, signaling to the shooter that he was a person and not an animal. Then the shooter, Janice, would have to look him in the eye and shoot at him 2 more times, and this would lead to his fate. So after that, according to the prosecutors, she then walked up to his body and would place 3 bullet casings from the same caliber of gun that he was using to make it seem like he had accidentally shot himself. Then she would have approximately 1 hour to change her clothes and ditch the murder weapon before Doug Kyle, the off-duty officer, would hear her screaming. Then the prosecutors would conclude with the reason she had shot and killed her husband in cold blood was due to money, properties, and anything else of his she could get her grubby little paws on. The sole reason of all this was money that she would have just blown through in just a few years, and after it was all said and done, the whole lump sum total would be just under $500,000. The prosecutors would go on saying they would never find the murder weapon that was stolen from JC. So, if any of you out there listening have any information on the Model 700 Remington 308 caliber rifle with the serial number D6844028, call DA investigator Bill Booth at 970-244-1702, or just call the DA's office, either way. Because the weapon is missing to this day. And, I've bought a gun before, and they're expensive, And if you take pride in what you do, that rifle is an expensive rifle. So let's get it back to the rightful owner, a good dude. Okay, he didn't want to be with this woman and all that. Let's get this man his rifle back. Anyway, she would maintain her innocence, saying that she had nothing to do with it and it was just a horrible accident. Janice overall did not take the stand at her trial. She gave her side of the story for the first time in an interview with primetime Chris Cuomo, repeatedly saying that she was innocent, but the evidence just piled up against her. She would go on telling him, I love Bruce Dodson. The only way I can live with this is that I have the peace of knowing that I didn't do it. And the prayer in my heart that someday the truth will win out. So it had taken the jury 3.5 days to come up with a verdict. Because remember, it's got to be unanimous. And I'm sure some people were like, oh, she's innocent. Come on, the evidence is right there. So on March 20th, 2000, the judge had asked for the jury's verdict. A lady stands tall and says, we find Janice Dodson guilty of murdering her recently deceased husband in the first degree. And we suggest a life sentence without the opportunity or possibility of parole. In March 11th, 2002, Janice Hall appeals on a lot of different things in that they erred here and there. And long story short, the judge and the jury tell her to fuck off because the evidence against her was just so large that she just couldn't dig herself out of it. She would even go as far as to say that she had mental issues. But she would mention this after the fact, not during the trial where it would have really mattered. But after the trial, she would appeal, saying that she had suffered from multiple personality disorder and everybody had called her out on her shit, saying fuck off with all that. Janice Dodson is currently serving life in Colorado State Prison without the possibility of parole. Police had never found the murder weapon that was used to gun down Bruce Dodson. There are, however, suspicions that it may have been purchased at a gun show or found in the woods by a local hunter. The jury understood the result that followed Booth's insightful mud exclamation. Janice is now serving life without the possibility of parole for the rest of her life in the Colorado State Prison for women. Wow. All I really got to say about it is she's a really smart person. To set that all up, think about it. You guys, think about it and picture it. Her husband cheats on her. She loses her shit. She goes on, meets this guy who's weak, emotionally weak and whatever. I don't want to diss him, but an easy target. Wealthy, very wealthy, and just sets up this horrible crime and just kills him in cold blood. Misses him the first time, has an opportunity to have a change of heart and be like, you know what? Nobody would even know that I did this. And then just wait at the campsite for him, and then just be like, oh, that's crazy. She goes on with her plan. She knew what she wanted to do, and it was all for money. You guys out there, I say it all the time. Get to know who you're dealing with. Don't jump into marriage. It doesn't work out. It doesn't. Take the time and fall in love and get to know who you're dealing with. Unless you're just trying to tap and go, do your thing. But if that's the case, whatever. But get to know who you guys are dealing with. Because a lot of these people that I talk about, They die because they just jump into marriage, or bad stuff happens to them, or they get beaten with canes, and it just bad stuff happens. Take the time, get to know who you're going to be with, and be happy, you guys. But for now, we're going to get out of all this marriage talk and all this hunting because my legs are tired, and we're going to jump into today's top 5 twisted recap. Number 1. She would, at the age of 8, start hunting with her father regularly and become quite the sharpshooter, bagging all kinds of big game, such as wolves, moose, and even wild boars. Number 2. She would fall madly in love with J.C. Lee and become a registered nurse where all of her peers would love and adore her. Number 3. She walked in on her husband getting ready to have sex with her daughter's best friend, and this would destroy her. Think about it if the roles were switched up. How would you feel? I'm sure it would destroy you too. Number 4. After her divorce, she would go from dressing rather conservatory and not showing much skin at all to wearing clothing that were nothing but extremely revealing and wearing makeup, attracting Bruce, her soon-to-be, her deceased husband. Number 5. In the end, she came up with a really, really well elaborate plan to kill her husband and almost got away with it. If it wasn't for her being like a little piggy and rolling around in the mud and getting mud all over her britches, she may never, ever have ever gotten caught. And overall, the whole reason why she did all this was for money. That's so messed up, killing somebody over money. But you know who else might have killed somebody over money? This week's Florida man. Okay, this week's Florida man. Let's see what we got. Florida man climbs atop playground equipment. Why do they fucking word it like that? A Florida man climbs on top of playground equipment and tells kids where babies come from. A Florida man climbed atop a piece of equipment at Clearwater Beach Playground Sunday and yelled at a bunch of children in the area. Police took Otis Dwayne Ryan, 30 years old, into custody on a charge of disorderly conduct at around 3 p.m. on Sunday. Officers said Ryan at first was approaching tourists and making inappropriate comments to women in effort to get their male partners to confront him. An officer in the area was watching him at the time. The officer would say, "I watched Ryan walk over to the busy playground and climb on top of the jungle gym where all these children were occupying it. These children ranged from 4 to 6 years old." What? He then started shouting from the top of it, yelling to children where babies come from. And he used a vagular term in doing so. At the time, parents were rushing to the area to remove their children. No joke. As soon as anybody climbs on top of it, I'm going to fucking throw a rock at him. If my kid's playing on a jungle gym and you're up there being retarded, I'm throwing a fucking rock and pegging your ass in the forehead so you fall down. Anyways, police also noted Ryan has caused a number of disturbances in the area recently, and jail records show a number of arrests over the last year on charges of disorderly conduct, battery, and carrying a concealed weapon. Court records show that in Sunday's case, Ryan was found guilty and fined $118, ordered to stay away from parks, and was released. That's so ridiculous. Okay, so there's your Florida man for the week. You never know what you're going to get. It's always something different. One week a guy's cutting somebody's nuts off. Another week a dude's setting somebody on fire. People are poisoning their husbands. It's great. Gotta love the Florida man. But you know what won't tell your children where babies come from? These beautiful twisted updates. By the way, if you make it to the end of the episode, you are a Twisted Couch Club member. Okay, where you can find the pictures. I can't put them on social media pages because they won't let me. So make sure that you guys go down below, check the description. You'll see everything in there. It's nice and categorized just for you guys. I did it just for you. So you can watch the videos, where I got my research, wherever. And there's pictures. Go to the pictures link and click that and you'll see all the pictures. So next week, here's the sneak peek. I'm going to do John Wayne Gacy. I know everybody's covered it in the past, but they don't cover him like I do. So we're going to cover John Wayne Gacy. So stay tuned next Friday, and we're going to get a John Wayne Gacy story going. And I'm going to dig deep and probably get some KFC on the way. Anyways, for any new country that we get, I'm going to do a story based around that country. So Finland, you're first. You guys are coming this Friday. You'll be with the John Wayne Gacy episodes. I'll drop 2 episodes on Friday. I'll be dropping those 2 episodes on Friday. And then next will be Canada, and then United Kingdom, and then Denmark. So thank you guys so much for listening. And I couldn't be more appreciative. You guys, every time I look, I just get more downloads and views, and people are hitting me up and talking to me, and it's cool. It's cool. Just keep it up, guys. Keep giving me your feedback. Let me know what you think. I love it. And I wouldn't do this if you guys didn't get a hold of me. You know, you guys motivate me to do this. You make me want to do this more and more and go deeper and cover touchy subjects and stuff like that. I want to, you make me want to just give you the best twisted story I possibly can. And I'm going to continue doing that every Friday. We're over, God, I don't even know, over 150, over 60, 160, something like that downloads. Thanks to you guys, keep spreading the twist like some sick jelly on some bread. You guys are truly, truly amazing twist heads. It's just so, it's so amazing. And I couldn't thank you guys enough. And thank you so much for all the love and support that you guys have been giving me. I couldn't thank you enough. And I love you all so deeply. And just stay on the couch with me. It's going to be fun and warm and cozy, and we're going to have a great time. Wherever you are listening, 5-star. Give me the 5-star rating so that way we can move up in the charts on iTunes. Doesn't matter what you say. Say Bob Ross is a cigar-smoking, badass biker motherfucker. Doesn't matter. Or you can say, I love this podcast. Whatever. Leave me a 5-star rating. Thumbs up. If you're watching it on YouTube, subscribe. Come on. You got to subscribe. Like, heart, whatever it is you guys got to do to get us out there. We're going to spread, and it's going to be because of you guys. Tell your friends. If you have any people, places, topics, anything twisted that you want me to cover, I'll shout you out for it like I did for Colton. Send it to me in an email or message on Facebook or whatever. I will read. I will cover them and add them to the list of people and places and things I'm going to be covering. Next, email in your stories. I'll read them at the end or maybe even make a bonus episode. There's just so much twisted talk to be had. I'm excited to see what you guys start sending. I'm going to put out my own paranormal story, and that's going to be coming out soon. I just got to make it. I just got to put it together. Where to contact us? Where to contact me? twistedcouchtalkproductions@gmail.com. twistedcouchtalkproductions@gmail.com. Where can you find the podcast? Absolutely everywhere but Pandora. For some reason, Pandora won't respond to my emails, so maybe you guys can whisper in their ear and say, "Hey, let's get this guy over here." Make sure you guys are checking out the YouTube channel and the new Facebook page. Don't forget to look down your sites and get the Facebook page follow button clicked. Click the Facebook follow button so that way you can stay in the now, not the past or future. Stay in the now so you know what's going on. Now, I hope you all accepted my challenge to the Patreon. Go over there. There's descriptions. Pick out which one you are. If it's you and if you want to subscribe, do so. You'll get the episodes 2 days earlier and other bonus stuff. But that's for people who, decide to do the Patreon. Or you can donate to the PayPal. But enough of all the business crap. Let's pack up our hunting gear and put this twisted book back on the shelf. I hope you all enjoyed the telling of that story as much as I did. I look forward to seeing you guys next Friday with another twisted journey into the abyss. But for now, put your hunting rifles away. Don't kill anybody for money. Just put your couches back, kick your friends out, and we'll see you guys next Friday on the couch. And as always, stay twisted, you twisted mother lovers.